Right, welcome back to the Dragon Age A to Z and to the letter B. Yes, B, and who could we begin with if not the lovely Bethany?
I never get to go to parties. They don't throw parties for mages in hiding.
Who is, I'm going to say, my second favourite Dragon Age 2 companion. Yeah, I would say second favourite. I like a bit of Bethany. Yeah, she's a nice one. I like Bethany. Bethany is the younger sister of Hawke and the twin sister of Carver in Dragon Age 2. Bethany is an apostate mage who does her best to hide her magical abilities and doesn't really seem to want them that much. I mean, she's quite sweet. We know that she likes stories and she likes folklore, and that she spent a lot of her time in Lothering listening to Leliana's tales when Leliana was a chantry sister there, because Leliana mentions her. That Bethany sort of hung around the chantry a lot and liked listening to our stories and things like that. Which is kind of odd when you think she was an apostate who was scared of Templars and then she hung around the chantry a lot. But, you know, I can't imagine there were many Templars in Lothering, which is probably why the Hawke family ended up there. She also seems to carry a certain amount of guilt for the fact that the rest of the family have to, like, protect her and keep her hidden from the Templars and whatnot. Her and her father, of course, because her father was also an apostate mage who, you know, chose to live outside the circle and chose to raise his magical daughter outside the circle. But yes, we know that they had to up sticks and move at least once because Bethany threw a local bully across a field with her magic, as happens. We also know that she didn't develop magic, or her magical abilities didn't manifest until she was 9 years old, which is quite late. Most of them seem to sort of develop about somewhere between the age of like 4 and 6, so 9's quite late. But I wonder if she just hid it before then, because she's the type. She's the type to like hide her own problems so she doesn't burden other people. Yes, anyway, Bethany can suffer many possible fates in Dragon Age 2. If Hawke is a mage, Bethany will die in Lothering at the hands of an ogre because, you can't have 2 mages in the team that early on, apparently. So, yes, if you play as a mage in Dragon Age 2, Bethany will die in Lothering at the hands of the ogre. And if you don't play as a mage, it will be Carver who dies at the hands of the ogre instead. If she survives, however, and makes it to Kirkwall, she does have another chance to die in the Deep Roads if you take her on the expedition into the Deep Roads. Without Anders. If you take her, but you don't take Anders, she will die down there from the Darkspawn taint. If you take Anders with you, she can be saved. I mean, she won't necessarily be saved. You can sort of decide whether to save her or not. If you take Anders with you, he can go and find the Grey Wardens for you. And she can be saved from the Darkspawn taint by becoming a Grey Warden. She will not thank you for it. It is worth noting, yes, she grows quite bitter, actually, if she becomes a Grey Warden. And she does leave the party. You do see her again. She crops up here and there, and she can turn up in the DLCs as well. But yes, and she'll turn up at the end of the game and things like that. But she leaves the party for the most part, and she goes off to become a Grey Warden, and she's not happy about it. She blames Hawke completely to the point where she all but cuts contact with Hawke and only continues writing to Leandra, their mother. Yeah, it's not nice. But if you leave Bethany behind on that mission and you go on the expedition without her, you return to find that she has been taken by the Circle of Magi. And she becomes a Circle Mage. Which, I don't know, it's odd. Like, it seems like that's a bad thing. Particularly in Kirkwall, because the Gallows is like a really, really harsh circle. Like, one of the harshest in Thedas. So it seems really bad that she's been taken by the Circle. Bethany actually thrives in the Circle. And that's like the best outcome for her, really. She seems relieved not to have to hide anymore. She passes her harrowing easily, and then she starts tutoring new apprentices, so she becomes like a teacher. And she seems quite happy. Yeah, but you lose her either way. At the end of Act 1, you will always lose Bethany. She's either already dead in Lothering, she dies in the Deep Roads, she becomes a Grey Warden, or she gets taken by the Circle. And it's worth noting that whatever fate Bethany suffers, your mother blames you for it profusely. Mums are just awful, aren't they? Aren't mums the worst? They're just like, oh, you got your sister killed. Oh, you got your sister sent to the Grey Wardens. Oh, you got your sister sent to the Circle. She just, like, blames you whatever you do. Anyway, if Bethany becomes either a Circle Mage or a Warden, she can still return to the party during the 2 DLCs. So that's Legacy and Mark of the Assassin. You can pick her as a companion and she'll come with you. She sort of seems to get on with everyone. She's interesting. She's like, I mean, Varric calls her sunshine, Isabella calls her sweetness. She is all kind of sweet and cuddly and lovely. And there's still glimmers of that, even if she does become a Grey Warden, at which point she becomes quite bitter. But yeah, there's still glimmers of that. And she does kind of get on with everybody, like even Fenris, who is very against mages and particularly apostates, has a soft spot for her and seems to really like her and isn't really nasty to her at all. She has quite a close friendship with Isabella. Judging by some of the banter they have quite a fun, playful sort of friendship. Some fans even ship them as a couple, and you know what? I can get behind that. Maybe more of like a friends with benefits kind of thing than like a true love story, but still, I can see it. It's kind of fun. Some of my favourite banter between them, actually. If you bring either Circle Mage or Grey Warden Bethany back as a companion in the DLCs, you can get some banter with Isabella, which suggests that Isabella has been sending Bethany dirty books to read. Books with pictures, you know, dirty pictures. I've got a friend who sends me stuff like that, come to think of it.
Oh, you liked them, did you?
They were wicked. It was like you were there.
Yes, final fun fact. In the intro to Dragon Age 2, when Varric is bullshitting to Cassandra about how Hawke escaped Lothering, Bethany's breasts are significantly bigger than in the rest of the game, as a testament to Varric's tendency to exaggerate.
Make it stop, little brother. Don't let House Tetris fall like this.
Right, next up, Bartrand. This is kind of a siblings sort of episode. This is like siblings of important people kind of episode. Yes, Bartrand is Varric's older brother and a member of the Merchants Guild. He was raised in Orzammar, but he came to the surface after the Tethras family fell into ruin. Yes, I know, scandalous. And according to Varric, spent his first few weeks scared that he would fall into the sky, as so many dwarves do when they first come to the surface. His once noble house may have been disgraced, but he managed to become very rich within the Merchants Guild. So, like, they were part of the noble caste. They were aristocracy. They were high-ups. And then they sort of fell into ruin and were disgraced and banished to the surface. And while on the surface, Bartrand joined the Merchants Guild and became very, very rich. He was also engaged to Rayella Dace for a time. So you know the Dace family who you meet in Origins? Yes, he was engaged to one of them, but she broke it off because of his obsession with making money. He was apparently quite neglectful of her because he just became obsessed with the idea of making money and just wanted to make as much money as possible, and she got sick of it, broke off the engagement, and apparently he was not that bothered. He was just like, yeah, whatever, and carried on making his money, so, you know. Yeah, he fell in love with money and forgot about everything else. That's kind of the story of Bartrand. We meet him in Dragon Age 2, where he is funding the expedition into the Deep Roads, the very same expedition that Bethany can die or become a Grey Warden on, to find more fortune in the old abandoned Tigers. So, after the end of the Blight, the Deep Roads are sort of quieter because a lot of the Darkspawn are either still on the surface as stragglers or they've been killed, they've been pushed back, you know. So the Deep Roads are quite quiet. So in that time is a good time to go treasure hunting, and that's kind of Bartrand's whole plan, is that he's going to have this massive expedition into the Deep Roads, find some of the abandoned old Tigers, and come out with lots of exciting treasure. During the expedition, he betrays both Hawke and Varric, locking them in an old Tig, stealing the relic that they found, and then just leaving them to die, because that's, you know, apparently what you do to your little brother. You know, so you don't have to split the profits with him. Yeah, that's the kind of guy Bartrand is. Upon escaping from the Deep Roads, Hawke and Varric find that Bartrand has fled. It is later revealed that he stole a red lyrium idol, and this is the first time red lyrium crops up in the game. Red lyrium, of course, becomes very important in Inquisition. But, yes, this is the first time we encounter red lyrium, so he stole a red lyrium idol from the Tig. And that has been slowly driving him insane, because that's what red lyrium does when you're too close to it for too long. It talks to you, and then you go a little bit mental. By the time we encounter him again, he's a raving lunatic who's kind of been force-feeding lyrium to his staff and just generally being kind of an arsehole, you know. And you can let Varric kill him, or you can persuade him to let him live, at which point Varric will put him in a chantry sanatorium. Honestly, I think death is probably kinder. I think I usually let Varric kill him at the end of that mission, because I don't really see what the point is of keeping him alive, but anyway.
That's a nice crossbow you have there.
Ah, isn't she? Bianca and I have been through a lot together.
Next up, sticking with the Varric theme, Bianca. Bianca is a repeating crossbow belonging to Varric. She is the only one of her kind, and is I was going to say unequipable. That's not the right word. Unequipable. Is that a word? You can't unequip her. She's unequipable. Unequip. Varric has to use her. He can't use anything else. He'll only use Bianca. You can't equip any other weapon on him. He will only use Bianca in both Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition. So she was crafted by Gerev? I'm not sure I've ever heard the name pronounced out loud before. Let's go with Gerev. I think Gerev. Who is a Carter Smith who appears in the Legacy DLC for Dragon Age 2. She was the 14th prototype that he made. He never quite managed to perfect the whole repeating crossbow thing. Most of them didn't work at all. But Varric bought the 14th prototype. And when Varric first acquired her, she didn't work either. So he took her to another Carter Smith named Bianca, who managed to perfect her design. Varric has always hidden Bianca's involvement in crafting Bianca in order to protect Bianca, and presumably also to protect Bianca. Yes, marvellous, wonderful, glad we've got all of that sorted out. Anyway, Varric and Bianca were lovers. No, not that Bianca, this Bianca. Although, to be fair, I have no idea what Varric gets up to in the privacy of his own room, nor do I particularly want to know, to be honest. Oh, I do make myself giggle sometimes. Now, Bianca, Dwarf Bianca, not Crossbow Bianca, Dwarf Bianca, is quite an unpopular character. Most people do not like her at all. I've never really liked her either. But while I was reading up on her for this, I don't know, I've started to think that, like, we don't really know enough about her to be able to make much of a judgment. So we know that she's a surface dwarf. She's a member of the Carter. We know she's a brilliant smith, even better than Branka, to the point where she is seriously under consideration for Paragon status despite being a surface dwarf. Surface dwarves do not become Paragons. She would be the first surface dwarf ever to become a Paragon. Yeah, we also... Oh, this is going to make Fred giggle. This made me giggle, so it's definitely going to make Fred giggle, right? She invented something called a steam-powered mechanical thresher and seeder. Now, I have no idea what a steam-powered mechanical thresher and seeder is, but it sounds to me like a sex toy, right? Anybody else think that sounds like a sex toy? Oh God, can you imagine? Oh, come round to my place. I'll get the steam powered mechanical thresher and seeder out. Does anybody even know what a thresher is? What's a thresher? I don't know what a thresher is. Oh dear. Anyway. Jesus, Magpie, focus, woman, focus. Right. Bianca and Varric met in Kirkwall and became lovers. Right? Fair enough. Marvellous. They were then forced apart by the Merchants Guild. Right? So she didn't leave him. That's not what was going on at all. They were forced apart by the Merchants Guild because they were just kind of causing too much trouble. And it was just sort of seen as like, nah, we can't let these two go frolicking around together, right? We just can't be dealing with it. So they kind of forced them apart, right? And Bianca was pushed into what seems to have been an arranged marriage. As far as I can tell. And her and Varric have been more or less separate ever since. They kind of seem to meet up now and then whenever they can and sort of rekindle things. And then she goes back to her husband and he goes back to being Varric. Right? She turns up in Inquisition during Varric's quest. The basics of the quest is that somebody has leaked the location of the Tig, where the red Lyrium idol was found in Dragon Age 2. And you go to investigate, right? Now, it turns out that this is where Corypheus is getting red lyrium from. Now, the leak turns out to be Bianca herself, but she didn't do it on purpose. She didn't deliberately leak the location of the tag to Corypheus. She just kind of trusted the wrong person because she wanted to find out more about red lyrium. She wanted to experiment on it. And yeah, she trusted the wrong person, and that person turned out to be an agent of Corypheus, and then Corypheus found out the location of the tag, right? But here's the thing. Varric told her not to experiment on red lyrium because red lyrium's dangerous. She didn't listen to him and experimented on the red lyrium, which may have been stupid, but because of Bianca, we know a very, very, very important thing, which hardly ever gets mentioned, and that is that red lyrium is normal lyrium that is infected with the blight. Right? Which is kind of a big deal for two reasons. One, red lyrium is normal lyrium that's infected with the blight. That's just a big deal in and of itself. And two, lyrium is alive, because the blight only infects things that are living. Right? These are two really important points that get completely glossed over. Like, they should be huge, game-changing kind of things. There should be a whole flipping main quest about that, but no, apparently we're just going to gloss over that. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of odd. But Bianca's the only reason we know that. So I think, you know, Bianca deserves a bit of a round of applause for that, if nothing else. Yeah, but nobody in the game actually seems that bothered. It's really odd. I'm assuming it'll become relevant in Veilguard, or maybe even future games beyond that, if there are going to be any. But anyway, yes, based on this little information we have, maybe Bianca is a little bit harshly judged by the Dragon Age fandom, who are frankly just really overprotective of Varric, I think. Mind you, having said that, to be fair, when you talk to her in Inquisition, she does tend to come across as a bit of a tit. Like, you know, she comes across as a bit of an arsehole. So maybe that's literally why people don't like her. I mean, that's certainly why I didn't like her when I first encountered her. She just kind of comes across as a bit of an arsehole. But yeah, as for her actual actions, I don't know if we can really judge them that harshly, to be honest. But, you know, maybe that's just me. Right, next up, Branka.
No, the anvil is mine. No one will take it from me.
Bloody hell, this is a bit of a dwarf-centric episode, isn't it? This is the episode of the dwarves. Right, so Branka is the wife of Oghren in Dragon Age Origins, and the only living paragon. So, dwarves appoint paragons. When somebody has done something really, really, really super amazing and awesome, they make them a paragon. They're basically like saints, as far as I can tell. And she is the only living one, and the only one who's been appointed in quite a while as well. So yeah, she's a pretty big deal, is old Branka. So she was born into the Smith caste, because the dwarves are function on a caste system where you have to become kind of whatever type of family you're born into. So if you're born into the Smith caste, you become a Smith. If you're born into the warrior caste, you become a warrior, etc., etc. Which is kind of a bit shitty if you are not particularly inclined to the thing that you're born into. But if you are inclined to the thing that you're born into, it works out quite well for you. And Branka really was. She crafted her first iron badge at the age of 2. And according to the codex, it was in the shape of a nug's ear, which, I mean, however, to be fair, a nug's ear isn't a very unique shape. She could have been aiming from anything from a leaf to a flippin' spoon, for all we know, but apparently no, it was a nug's ear. It was definitely absolutely a nug's ear. She's only 2 years old, but it was a nug's ear. It's fine. Anyway, turns out she was a little bit of a prodigy because she went on to invent smokeless coal, which I admit would be very useful in an underground city. I have 2 questions, however. Firstly, how can you invent coal? I don't think anybody's ever invented coal. You have to, like, you know, mine the stuff. You mine coal. You don't invent coal, you mine coal. And secondly, this is a genuine question for anybody who knows anything about physics. Is it actually possible to have fire without smoke? Because you can have smoke without fire. You can do that. I don't know if you can have fire without smoke. Because, from what I remember from my fire safety course that I did about 5 years ago, it's the smoke that ignites, isn't it? So, like, things smoke first before they catch fire because it's the smoke that ignites. Like, that's the ignition point. Right? Am I just talking nonsense? I might just be talking nonsense. I don't know. Anyway, Dragon Age is a fictional world with magic and demons and whatnot, so I suppose smokeless coal, fine, let's not question it. So, Branka's invention made her a paragon and elevated her family to the noble caste. At this point, only a year after they were married, Oghren was suddenly a little bit beneath her. So Oghren was part of the warrior caste. And she was married to him because it seemed like a good match at the time. And then suddenly she's a paragon and been elevated to the noble caste, and Oghren's kind of old news. So, you know, the marriage, although it had started well, kind of slowly started to fall apart. And she took another lover, Hespeth, who also happens to be Oghren's cousin. Yes, you heard me right. Hespeth, who you meet in the Deep Roads, who is Branka's lover, she's also Oghren's cousin. They were lovers before they went into the Deep Roads, though. They became obsessed with finding the fabled Anvil of the Void, and eventually Branka took Hespeth and her whole house, minus Oghren, into the Deep Roads to find it. So the Anvil of the Void is basically like a magic anvil that can craft golems, made by the other paragon Caradin. Yes, and she went off gallivanting into the Deep Roads to find it. So we encounter her during Origins, where we discover that she found the anvil, but she can't get past its defences. So, being the rational-minded person that she is, she sacrificed her entire house trying to get through. And then she gave the women... I mean, she didn't sacrifice the women, she's not a total monster. Oh, no. She gave the women to the Darkspawn. Right? So the Darkspawn turned them into brood mothers, and then she had an endless supply of Darkspawn to throw at the defences. It's great, isn't it? That's a wonderful idea. Brilliant. In fact, I think she actually forced them to, like, eat Darkspawn flesh and stuff like that. Because if you do that, one of several things happens. Either you turn into a ghoul, you die, or apparently you possibly turn into a broodmother. And the broodmothers are like the horrible, very, very octopus with tits kind of a thing. Yeah, let's go with that. Octopus with tits, who just, like, give birth to all the Darkspawn, like, loads. And they're very disturbing and creepy. And they have a lot of tits. But, like, not in a good way. They're not, like, good tits. They're, like, creepy tits. They're, like, you know, tits are normally a good thing, but not on broodmothers. They're not good tits on broodmothers. I probably can't even show you broodmother tits. I think YouTube's quite anti-tit, isn't it? YouTube's not really into the whole tits, so... I can't even show you the broodmother tits. All this talk of tits, I can't even show you. Yes, so, anyway, so she threw a whole load of her house at the defences, trying to get through the defences, right? The women, she just turned them into flipping broodmothers, so that she would have a load of the Darkspawn to throw at the defences. She even sacrificed Hespeth, her beloved Hespeth. Yeah, who, I mean, she's not a broodmother by the time we meet her, she's actually a tainted ghoul. Who's just kind of talking nonsense and tells you all about all of the lovely horrors that Branka has inflicted upon her. So yes, it's safe to say that by this point Branka has gone absolutely friggin' mental bananas, as so many BioWare villains seem to, and once you reach the anvil, you can choose to destroy it, which will lead Branka to attack you and you'll be forced to kill her. You may be able to show her how far she's fallen. If you've got, like, really high persuasion, you can sort of, you know, make her see the error of her ways, at which point she'll destroy the anvil herself and then commit suicide. Or you can side with her and preserve the anvil, at which point she will remain in the Deep Roads, crafting golems, which you can use in the final battle, which is actually pretty cool, to be fair. That's quite cool. But, you know, you have to kill Caradin, and if Shale's in the party, you have to kill Shale as well, and, you know, lots of people don't like you if you keep the anvil intact. But yeah, what's a bit creepy about that is if you leave Branka alive in the Deep Roads with the anvil, she doesn't go back to Orzammar. She stays in the Deep Roads. And then by the time Inquisition comes around, there's mentions of her that seem to suggest that, like, she just vanished at some point, that she's just kind of gone. And nothing's been heard from her and nobody knows where she is or what happened, which is interesting, but anyway. Which leads us to our final entry, Blackwall. Blackwall was a Grey Warden who joined the Order voluntarily rather than the usual method of being forcibly conscripted, when the only alternative is death or something equally awful, because that's how most Grey Wardens are conscripted. It's sort of like, well, we could execute you or you could become a Warden. But no, he actually volunteered. He wanted to be a Warden, did old Blackwall. He was, by all accounts, a model Grey Warden who saw the Wardens as protectors and was proud to wear their uniform He became the Warden Constable of Orlais after his close friend Elise Fontaine became the Warden Commander. He led expeditions to secure all of the Deep Road's entrances in Orlais after the Fifth Blight, and was even awarded the Grey Warden Silverite Wings of Valor for heroically rescuing 7 of his fellow Wardens during a cave-in. He was, like, really against Loghain closing the borders to the Wardens during the Fifth Blight, like he wanted to get in there and help out. He was probably, like, a really great guy. By all accounts, he was fabulous, he was brilliant, he was somebody to be looked up to, he was wonderful. I don't have a bad thing to say about him. As for this lying, self-righteous, pathetic excuse for a human being, we'll get to him a bit later in the alphabet. Yeah, so that is our B entry. We do have some honourable mentions. There's quite a lot of stuff that I just can't fit in these videos, man. You know, I need to do more in-depth videos on all of these, I think, because, like, there's just too much that I can't fit in. We missed out Balin, another dwarf. Very dwarf-centric episode, this one. We missed out Bryce Cousland, father of the Warden if you pick Human Noble as your origin. We missed out Brontos, the sort of little rhino things that I think definitely belong in Star Wars. They look like they belong in Star Wars. The name Bronto just sounds like it belongs in Star Wars, but no, it's a Dragon Age thing. Broska, the surname of the common dwarf warden. Again, more dwarf references. And blood magic. That's a pretty big one, actually. We missed out blood magic. But don't worry, blood magic is going to tie into so many of the other topics that we're covering later on. But, yes. You can join me next time when everybody's favourite blonde Templar will be making an appearance, along with a few other notable mentions. But until then, I shall see you tomorrow, darlings.